It has, Chair, yes.
Thank you very much. So good morning to anyone who's joining us this morning. This is the Cabinet meeting for Tuesday the 9th of February, and I will begin by asking if there are any apologies for absence.
I don't have any, Chair, no.
Thank you very much. You have the minutes of the meeting that we held in January, January the 12th, and I'll sign those as a true and correct record later on if you all agree. Yes, thank you. Disclosure of members' interest. Would anybody like to declare any interest in any of the issues we're talking about this morning? Okay, thank you very much. We now move on to the budget, and the budget for 2021 to 22 and the medium-term financial plan for 21 to 24. Could I ask that everybody goes on mute that's not muted, because there's a little bit of echo there, I think. So I'd just like to begin by introducing the budget very briefly. As we know, the council can only work really well if it has a fantastic staff doing great jobs in the areas that they cover. And I am exceptionally grateful to all members of staff throughout the council who have kept all our services going throughout what has been probably the most difficult year anyone could have imagined. Whether they are answering phones or driving the gritter wagons, or doing work with older people or with younger people, or handing out the grants that we have been so busy with over the last few months. So thanks to each and every one. We've wanted to make sure that this budget protects the staff as far as we are able to, and so there will be no compulsory redundancies in this budget. I would also like to say that we've taken a new step this year by enlarging the consultation process to ensure that residents have the opportunity much more to be actively involved in the budget and how we prioritise the work that we do going forward. Hundreds of people responded to the Have Your Say event online, which was very good of them. We're very grateful for that, and that is all working into the work that we've done in the budget. We also had an interactive question and answer session, which I think is the first time as well we've ever done that. So thank you very much to everyone who helped with that, and thank you to everyone who participated. I'm actually going to pass on now to the cabinet member responsible for finance, Councillor Oliver, and then would offer the opportunity to any member of cabinet to speak if they wish to about areas in their areas of responsibility. So over to you, Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to sort of go into too much detail because we've done a series, we've done 5 presentations to local area councils. So I think every member of the cabinet has sat through one of those at least. And we also did a presentation to the scrutiny committee yesterday, at which every member of the cabinet was there to take questions. I'll just make a sort of few, I think, key points. I think as the leader has pointed out, this has been it's difficult to produce a budget in any year, but particularly difficult to produce a budget in a COVID year. It's been a tremendous effort by officers across all service areas, and in particular, I'd just like to put on my record my thanks to the finance team, to Chris, Alison, and everybody else involved in what has been a very complex process. I think there's a sort of few key points that's worth drawing out. We are spending more. This is a bigger budget this year than coming up than the year we're in. We're also on target this year in the year that we're in to meet our budget targets, and we're currently forecasting a slight underspend. And that'll be, we've done that every year whilst we've been the administration. So the overall gross spending is rising by £21 million this year. And as the chair pointed out, we have in our consultation had some very useful feedback from residents across the county. And what they told us is they'd like us to spend more money on adult services, on children's services, and on local services. and we're spending around about £5 million more on adult services, around about £10 million more on children's services, and around £3.5 million more on local services. We're also making efficiency savings. We're determined that this council it delivers the best value it can for residents across the county. We're managing borrowing. We're providing extra support for those most vulnerable. So this year we've offered we've used some of the money we've received from government to provide council tax support for anybody on local council tax support scheme, and we're doubling that next year. So that I think will take around about 15,600 households out of paying any council tax altogether. So. And we're investing, and I think that's a really key message. We are coming out of COVID. It's really important that we have a recovery plan. We've been working really hard on that. Officers have been doing some phenomenal projects coming forwards. So the capital investment across all areas, all geographical areas of the county, but in education, in new jobs, it really is an exciting time for the county of Northumberland. And I wholeheartedly recommend this budget to you all.
Good, thank you very much. Would any other member like to say anything at this stage? Okay, Jeffrey Watson, and then Guy Renner-Thompson.
Just a question, Nick. I'm aware that we believe that we've been very competitive, if I can't think of a better word, with the LA7 comparing what we're increasing with them. I know you made reference to it the other day. I wonder if we could get an indication of what we've got from the other 7. I know it doesn't really matter because we've done what we needed to do, but I think it'd be useful just to know it. So if you could find that out, I would be obliged anyway. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly we'll do an exercise. I think everybody is going through the same process as us at the moment. So I imagine by now everybody will have made their plans public. So we'll get a summary circulated on that.
Good, thank you very much. Guy Renner-Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to highlight what Councillor Oliver said about investment and the investment in our school estate. Our budget commits £71.6 million into our current school estate. That's new builds, not finishing what we've already started. New builds in Berwick, Armble and Seaton Delaval. And when you include the 17 million we've included for the investment in our special schools, that brings our total investment to £89 million, which is quite unprecedented in the local area. And in fact, across England, there aren't many other local authorities that are putting in that much work to improve their school estate, and that will benefit the children of Northumberland for the next 50, 60 years, never mind the next 5 years. So it's really something we should be proud of.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably just worth making a comment on that as well, that not only are we investing in schools, but school standards are rising as well. So, and I think that together with giving people employment opportunities as we come out of COVID, it's really important that we give all of the young people in Northumberland the very best possible start in life.
Yeah, absolutely. Good, thank you. John Riddle.
Thank you. I think it's a very positive budget. It's actually a budget that's spending more money than we did last year, not less. People try to dress things up that we're cutting things when we are not cutting things, but it doesn't matter how good a business is, there's always efficiencies that can be found and better ways of doing things to deliver the same or more. And I commend this budget. I think it is excellent. I think it's very good for the residents, and it'll be good for business as well.
Excellent, good. I just wondered if we wanted to touch briefly on the capital programme. I don't know whether Richard Dodd wants to say anything on the capital programme. Richard?
No, I think we have invested wisely and continue to do so, but we have the problem, COVID. And as you know, a lot of things are sort of delayed a little bit, pushed back, but I think everything is still in there that was originally in there. So don't relatively good news, but COVID will have had an effect. Thank you, Glenn.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think the capital programme covers all parts of the county, yes, we have managed to get through COVID, but we are still very much on track. I mean, I think one of the things, you probably expect me to say this, but one of the things I'm most proud of is how we've managed to keep our road building, our road repairs, our pavements, our cycleways and walkways, all that work has continued despite everything. All the work with Communities Together, Veronica, and all the work that we do with older people has continued. All the work we do in education has continued, and we've got a fantastic thanks to the staff who've done all of this, and that's why we want to make this budget something that people can feel confident about, and continue to work together as a team on. So that's great. Anything else from anyone else? In that case, may I? Actually, something from
Chair, Councillor Watson has his hand up, but I don't know if it's an old hand or if he wants to speak again.
Let's call it a mature hand. Okay, so I believe I'm right, Karen, in thinking that we've got some we've got a note from scrutiny, have we?
There's a report from scrutiny circulated yesterday, Chair. Quite a lengthy report, which I'm sure members will have read.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we probably take all those comments as noted. We were all there yesterday as well, weren't we? So we heard them firsthand.
Good. Okay, thank you very much. So with that, I need to take you to the recommendations, which you'll be relieved to hear I'm not planning on reading out, but they are there for us to agree. If I can find the right place. And so you've received a copy of the report. Are we all happy with those? Are there actually recommendations on this? Sorry, I can't see. Nuisance. Are there any recommendations with this one?
There are recommendations, Chair. They're contained in your large budget book, and Cabinet are asked to agree the recommendations.
Yes, that's where they are. Yeah, thanks. I thought that's where they were. I just wondered if there was a second one. So can I have a proposer, please? Proposed by Nick Oliver, seconded by Jeffrey Watson. Are we all in favour of all those recommendations?
Agreed.
Yep. So that's lovely. That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, so now we move on to number 5, which is around the school admissions arrangements for the community and voluntary control schools in the 2022-23 academic year. Guy Renner-Thompson, and then I'll ask Sue Averstein.
Yes, this is something that is a statutory requirement. As read, you'll note the admissions arrangements haven't been changed. It's been through scrutiny. Scrutiny were happy with it. So I think the simplest way of putting this is that if you have 2 children, an older one and a younger one, you can be rest assured that they're going to end up at the same school because the admission arrangements haven't changed. So,
okay, thank you, Guy. Sue, good morning.
Good morning, Chair. Yes, as Councillor Renner-Thompson said, this is an annual report that we need to bring through to Cabinet as the local authority's decision-making body to determine our admission arrangements. So the report in front of you really just sets out those arrangements, and the recommendations are there in the report, together with some additional information contained in appendices 2, which are the proposed admission numbers for first and primary and voluntary controlled schools, as well as the arrangements for our middle, high and secondary schools are also contained in appendices 3. As Councillor Renner-Thompson's already said, there are no changes to those amendments. We did, however, consult all of our schools as well as our neighbouring local authorities on these arrangements, but we didn't receive any comments back from anybody during that time. Again, this is not unusual because there weren't any changes to the recommendations. And I think that's everything. Thank you, Chair, really. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Sue. Are there any questions from anyone? Anything that needs to be clarified? We do have a note from the Family and Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which you've been circulated, and it was agreed to advise the Cabinet they supported the recommendations as outlined in the report. So with that, if there are no questions, can I take them to the recommendations? There are 4 of them there. Would anyone like to propose those, please? Proposed by Guy Rayner-Thompson, seconded by Richard Dodd. Thank you very much. Are you all in favour of those recommendations? Thank you very much indeed. I think that's unanimous. It is unanimous. Now we move on to number 6, which is the Northumberland Climate Change Action Plan 21 to 23. And before I ask an officer to begin, I'd just like to briefly say 1 or 2 words, if I may, because if you recall, not last June, but the June before, we decided that we would declare a climate emergency in Northumberland. We did not wait to be petitioned to do that. Instead, we began a dialogue with groups to help us move forward with our climate change work. And I can't thank all those groups and individuals across the county who've helped us feed into what is now this action plan, and for all their support, and the fact that the steering group has met regularly and successfully, and that's been hugely useful. We actually had the first online question and answer session around climate change last week, and it went so well we will do another one in March. I just simply want to say that this is a hugely important document for the whole council and for the whole county, and actually for all of us and our children and our children's children. So it's got to be a priority for this administration, and it is a priority. I can only thank the staff for all the work they've done on this. We have a small but very, very, very good team, and we will look to them going forward to help us through this extremely important work to make sure that we continue to keep this as a top priority for this council and for all of us. I'm now going to hand over to Rick O'Farrell. I think, Rick, are you going to begin?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. Members will remember that we brought the report to Cabinet in, I believe it was October last year, which outlined the main areas of activity that we were looking at to bring forward the actual action plan and the policy areas and the objectives. That report was agreed by yourselves, and since then the team led by Matt Baker has come up with a very detailed action plan, which is what we're asking you to approve today. This lays out a clear roadmap for how we will become a net zero council. It's a very detailed piece of work. I'm going to hand over now to Matt Baker, if it's okay, Chair, to do a very, very brief presentation, which will last no longer than 3 or 4 minutes, but which sums up the 80-odd page action plan and shows that clear direction which we're going to take, because it's those guys that have done all the really hard work, Chair. That's okay?
Yep, thank you, Rick.
I'll hand over to Matt and I'll switch my camera off.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Chair. Good morning. I'll share my screen and I'll go quickly. You'll have seen some of this before, some colleagues on the call. So what we've tried to do is condense, as Rick said, sort of 90 pages into 4 slides. So I'll go quite quickly, but obviously happy to take any detailed questions. So what this slide basically shows is the scale of the challenge. We have data which now allows us to be quite granular in our understanding of not only what the emissions are, but where do they come from, which then allows us to get into quite a lot of detail around what specific projects can have what specific action. I think the important thing to kind of recognise, though, and yeah, we recognise this as a team, is that this is a kind of whole team effort, both inside the council and outside the council. And with that in mind, our focus isn't just about climate change; it's got to be about funding and about jobs, and also about climate. And you can see on the right hand side just some of the examples of the kind of the numbers in terms of inward investment and jobs that we can now see in the next 2 years, and we can start to see coming through sort of beyond that. In terms of how we'll go about doing our work, there are the kind of two key dimensions to this. There's what we call the enablers, which is how do we set climate friendly policy, to want for a better way of describing it. And as important as that, you could say more important than that, the partnerships will need to create both inside the council but also outside the council with our communities, businesses and visitors. And that will be crucial in order to really drive a kind of grassroots approach to climate change, as well as an approach from the kind of council down. And then there are 5 direct contributors to how we're going to tackle climate change, so heating, transport, renewable energy, sequestration and waste. And to sort of bring that to life, there's 3 little projects, well, big projects, but 3 examples I'm going to dwell on quickly. So on the left here, what you've got is basically a disused mine. So that is a climate change presentation with a mine in, and what we're doing here is looking at how we can reuse some of the heat that mine now generates through the water that floods those mines in Blyth, and that forms the basis of a number of projects which effectively we hope will become district heating schemes across the county. We've then got the Great Northumberland Forest, which we all recognise our kind of very fortunate position of how much carbon we sequester in the county because of how much forestry we already have. We want to build on that through the Great Northumberland Forest. And then on the right hand side, that little sort of Dalek looking thing is an on-street charger. So in order for one of the other facets of the plan to work effectively, we need to have the right infrastructure in place in order for people to charge EVs, for example. And that's something which we're now looking at. And for each of these different projects, we've already got investment, and there's other investment in the pipeline to fund these things. So this is about attracting external money into the county in order to do what we need to do as part of the programme. In terms of what we need to do next, so we're well on the way to recognising climate change as an integrated service within the council, and that's something which we're going to really kind of drive home over the next 4 years as we look at people's individual service level service plans and make sure there's a kind of climate focus across the entire service. And there's a number of other things we're going to do which you can read here. I guess the key thing we need from colleagues on this call is that commitment in point 6 there, which is we need everybody to be committed to this. Because it's only going to work if we can pull in the same direction and tackle climate change as we've outlined in the plan. Appreciate I've gone really quickly. If there's any questions, then please, yeah, I'm happy to take them.
Matt, thank you very much indeed. I've got Jeffrey Watson first.
Thank you, Glenn. Can I just say what a fantastic report? And I would like to really comment on just 2 pages, 25 and 26. You point out, and you just made in your point 6 about we really need to get the community on board. Well, that couple of pages talks about community champions and talks about schools and young people. I think that is a key, really key issue to the success of the climate change. If we can get some people in the community to be aware of it and what we're doing. I mean, we've seen all over the world, we've seen the effects happening more and more about the effects of climate change, and anybody, any councillor or any person who thinks that climate change is not important, in my estimation, is a fool, because it is important. It is for the future of us all, and I think that element of school and young people is so essential to briefing them, to let them know. And you know what, the reaction from them I think will be very receptive. My feeling is that they want to know about it and they want to help. They just need to encourage it. I'm really pleased that you're concentrating on it to a good extent in this report. So well done, and please carry on with that work. Thanks for allowing me to speak, Glenn.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks, Jeff. Couldn't agree more. Richard Dodd?
Yeah, I'm looking at the hydro end of things. I mean, we do have the biggest, or one of the biggest in the country, in Kielder Water, where I have another farm in Dumfries. We have 2 hydroelectric plants, unobtrusive. They're not like wind turbines, and I think it's something that we could go down in Northumberland, especially with the way farming is changing. Land managers stroke landowners might be interested in some of this, and quite happy to have a conversation somewhere, but because it's really money for nothing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I take the next question now. Next point from John Riddle. I think Richard Wearmouth's wants to say something as well in a minute. John Riddle first.
Yeah. I suppose, you know, one of the main things here is walking the talk and really engaging with the communities and showing that, you know, things do happen. I know I've been in touch with Rick already, but one thing in my remote rural communities is this super fast battery chargers, car chargers. You know, we're not going to get people out of cars in the rural areas. We're never going to achieve that, you know, but hopefully we'll achieve them using zero emission vehicles. You know, that's got to be the goal. But for that to happen, you know, people do need to have this infrastructure and it has to be fast. The drawback at the moment is that the Northern Power Grid things don't seem to have the capacity in some of these areas to put these super fast chargers in. They can put 7 kilowatt chargers, but not the really fast ones.
Okay, John, I'll take Richard Wearmouth, and then if you want to take some of those points, Matt. Richard, can't hear you. No, we can't hear Richard. We'll come back to him. Nick Oliver was next.
Thank you, Chair. I just wonder if I could ask Matt if he could sort of expand upon the point in the about the sort of opportunity we have as a county for a green recovery and green jobs and the, you know, the economic benefit. Obviously, we've all talked about the climate benefits. Absolutely essential that we do something, but it also provides us a real opportunity.
Yeah, Nick, shall I come back to John's point really quickly, if I can first, and then Nick, I'll come to your point. John, I agree, and we are Councillor Wearmouth made an introduction to Northern Power Networks, which was really beneficial. So as it happens, I'm meeting with them again tomorrow, and that is a very active conversation around how do we sync, without getting into too much technical detail, their delivery plans and their kind of infrastructure plans with what we need to do. And no promises for Bellingham, obviously, but that is absolutely what we need to do is align those two things, and I think that's really important for them as it is for us. In terms of Nick's point, if I kind of use a very kind of specific example, if I may. So we've recently just been awarded £3.4 million of grant funding for basically green home grants, which some of you may have read about in the press. And this specific grant funding is actually aimed for increasing the energy efficiency and renewable energy source into homes where the income's less than, I think it's 25,000, and also a kind of social housing stock. There's a real interesting overlap here with fuel poverty and deprivation, which is really important. The reason why that scheme is failing at the moment nationally is because the supply chain around what's quite a low barrier to entry in terms of jobs and getting people into homes in a COVID safe way to put in place this infrastructure isn't working effectively. So what we've done is partnered with a third party, E.ON as it happens, to kind of help build some of that supply chain. So that will have a direct impact on, we think around 50 jobs if you just do some kind of really basic modelling. Now, they won't all be new jobs, but that will be a very kind of specific and tangible thing that we should start to see happen in the next 12 to 18 months. And there's a subsequent slug of grant funding which comes after that, which is dependent on the first lot being effectively executed. So these things kind of connect together really nicely. And obviously with that, we'll need to work with colleagues in housing, because that's where some of the workforce is to do that. So I think we can get quite specific and quite tangible to kind of walk the walk, I think is the phrase, and not just kind of create the plan.
Yeah, good. Richard Wearmouth.
Thank you, Glenn. Apologies, I was struggling to come off mute for some reason. The button just wouldn't press. So thank you very much for a great presentation, Matt. I know that there's lots of work from yourself and from the Regen team as well that is going into this to make sure that we're geared up to get to that milestone that we want of being at least net zero by 2030, and an awful lot of work that's gone into it by the leader. I think that the report and everything that you always say is so comprehensive that there's really always little to add other than to really welcome the progress. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Richard. If there are no further questions, can I thank you, Matt, for everything you've done. I mean, to have an action plan like this in such a short period of time, you and your colleagues have done us proud, actually. And all the consultation and all the work we've done and the meetings we've had with schools and so on does emphasise the point that this is really crucial for us to get right and to be committed to. And certainly this administration is absolutely full square behind that. So thank you, Matt. Can I take you to the recommendations? Would anybody like to propose those? Proposed by Jeff Watson, seconded. John, is that your hand up there? Yep. Okay. Are you all in favour of these recommendations? Thank you very much. Lovely. That's all agreed unanimously. Thank you very much, and thank you again, Rick and Matt, very much for your time this morning. We'll move on to number 7, which is a summary of the new capital proposals considered by the Officer Capital Strategy Group. And I think I'm welcoming Neil to this meeting to present that. Neil, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'll pick these up. We've got 5 items on the agenda today, and I must admit I was struck when I was reading through this morning just how diverse the 5 of them are, which just shows the wide variety of business the council gets involved in. But I'll skip through them in the usual style, pausing at the end of each one. The first is a request for approval to begin the building phase of the development of the car park at the Goose Hill site in Morpeth. There has been well documented and evidenced parking issues in Morpeth that have been discussed in a few previous occasions in different forums. We are very limited in options around additional car parking in Morpeth, but the Goose Hill site is one option that we do have, and in fact the only option that we do have that's been put forward by the team. The application here is for a 140 space car park on that site. It must be said, and it's set out in para 6.5, that this is a tricky site to develop. There are a number of constraints on it, and it is quite an expensive project. But as I say, there are no other obvious options to pick up here. And the advantage is we do own this land, so we don't have any acquisition costs for actually taking the development forward on this site. The total cost of the build is expected to be in the region of 1.7 million. And at this stage, what we're asking Cabinet to do is to approve that allocation from the in excess of 10 million that's been put aside for car park and developments in the medium-term financial plan overall for Northumberland.
Thank you very much, Neil. I think we would all wholeheartedly welcome this. It is basically the only place that's available to us in Morpeth. It is an expensive, annoyingly expensive site because of all the various bits and pieces underground and so on. However, it's hugely important that we do this, and of course it will have electric charging points within it, and as more electric vehicles continue, we will get more in there. So it's hugely important, not just for our residents, but for our visitors, and to ensure the businesses in Morpeth get our full support by doing this. So thank you very much. We'll move on to the next one, Neil.
Yep. So number 2 is the installation of solar PV panels at the new Berwick Leisure Centre. This is coming forward at this point to coincide with when phase 1 of the development will be completed, and we want the solar panels in place shortly after that. The request here is for £150,000 to be released from the Renewable Energy Programme to undertake that work. The existing solar panels that were in place on the old Swan Centre building delivered around about 10 kilowatts of solar. These ones increased that to around 84 kilowatts, which is a significant improvement, but it is needed because ground source heat pumps are going into this building, which require significantly more electricity to actually power them. So again, we're tying the 2 component parts of renewable energy together here. It does deliver a significant amount of clean energy off the back of those, as is set out in paragraph 7.3. And over the 25-year life cycle, the project just about breaks even. I mean, there's a small surplus stated there, but clearly the bigger issue is the carbon reduction agenda in terms of what we're trying to achieve through this. So again, the request is for the 150,000 to be released for that.
Thank you very much. Yes, I don't know whether, Jeff, you want to add anything. Nick, I'll pass to you first.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think it's just like to welcome this in the context of the report we've just had about climate change, but also in the context of the budget report, where we basically just put forward to full council investment of around about £37 million directly into Berwick. So it's great to see Berwick getting such good support.
Indeed. Jeffrey Watson.
Yeah, just really echoing all that's been said. It's a first-class scheme. It puts together two elements of solar. It also burns into my ambition to all of our leisure centres at the end of the day to be self-sufficient with the fees that they charge and to run themselves. So it'll be a benefit to both the public for its health and well-being, but also to the council for its finances. A really good scheme, and I recommend it.
Exactly. Good. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Neil. We like that one very much.
So number 3 is for us to accept additional funding from the government for backlog maintenance issues within schools. It was announced in June 2020, a national programme of £560 million worth of grant, of which Northumberland will receive about 3.6 million. The education team have obviously been putting together a proposal on how they wanted to use that grant, and that proposal is set out here, and it's targeted at the poor state of mobile classrooms within maintained schools within Northumberland. So all the schools were written to undertake an assessment of the condition of their mobile classrooms, and off the back of that, a number of schools have been selected to receive grant to either replace or renovate those classrooms to bring them up to a much higher standard. The schools that were successful is set out in paragraph 8.9 there. There's a list of the schools in that section. And what we're seeking from Cabinet here is for us to accept the government grant of 3.6 million, for you to approve that the funding can be used for the mobile classroom replacement programme, and to delegate to the Director of Adults and Children's Services and the lead member the ability to release those grants to the schools and to undertake that work.
Lovely, thank you. Guy Rayner-Thompson.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Of course, we should welcome this extra investment from the government, and it feeds on nicely from what I said during the budget presentation. You know, it's another 3.6 million we're investing in our school estate, and if you look at the list of schools where it's going, it's well spread across the county. It's not limited to one area, so it's based on need. So, should be happy with it.
Good. Thank you very much, Nick Oliver.
Obviously, I'd just like to welcome the investment in Corbridge Middle School as the member for Corbridge. A fantastic school. And the facilities there have improved dramatically over recent years, and this will be another step towards that. So very, very welcome.
Good, thank you. We like that one very much as well, Neil. Next one, please.
Thank you. Yeah, number 4 is on a similar theme of additional funding coming forward from central government, this time from MHCLG. And we have recently been notified that we'll get some additional disabled facilities grant towards the back end of the year. I mean, just as a reminder, this grant is used for adaptations to people's homes to allow them to live with disability, to live more easily with disability within their own home environment. We do get this regularly. I think it's MHCLG getting rid of funds towards the back end of the year when they realise they've got a little bit more in the coffers. Normally we need to spend it by the 31st of March, which is problematic. Helpfully this year they would prefer that to happen, but they are allowing it to roll over into next year, which is useful because in a COVID year we've struggled to keep on top of the programme, so it's unlikely we'd be able to spend that before the 31st of March, but it will get utilised into the start of the next financial year, and we'll roll that over. At this point though, all we're asking Cabinet to do is to accept the receipt of that grant and for us to put that into the medium-term financial plan.
Thanks, Neil. Veronica Jones.
Thank you, Glenn. Yes, I've spoken before about the Disabled Facilities Grant and the benefit it is to help residents to make adaptations and improvements to their own homes to allow them to remain independently and stay at home. This extra funding is very, very welcome.
Thank you very much. John Riddle.
Yeah, I would echo what Veronica says. My only concern is that, these small amounts of money make a huge difference to some of these disabled or less able people that need the adaptations, and I just wonder if if there is a way of getting more contractors on site, so to speak. We're pool there work-wise. Anything that be done to make sure that we spend this money quickly to the benefit of those people would be much appreciated.
Yeah, good. Thank you very much. Jeff Watson.
Old hand, sorry.
Ah, a mature hand again, right. I think that's everyone. Yep, okay, we like this one as well. Neil, thank you very much.
No problem. And the last one, again, down a slightly different path, literally, is for us to receive a grant from Natural England for the next stage of the development of the Northumberland part of their very ambitious programme to create a continuous walking route right round England and Wales. You received a report back in 2017 for the first component of this, which was the path between Seaton, Sluice and Amble. This report covers the section between Amble and Bamborough, and there will be another report to come later this year on the section from Bamborough to the Scottish border. The team worked with Natural England, the council team worked with Natural England to establish what they think the costs are going to be of that proposal and agree the grant amount. So the I think it's just under £100,000, which has been agreed with them, has been corroborated from our side and will meet 100% of the costs that are going to be incurred in developing this. So again, we're just asking at this stage for the council to receipt that grant into the medium-term financial plan so we can take that programme forward.
Thank you very much. Jeff Watson.
A new hand this time. Thank you, Glenn. Just to say this is important work. It also, I think, brings to my mind anyway, strengthens the work that we're trying to do with our highways and parks teams about making sure that we've got enough parking facilities to warrant to go along with this. It's a really good scheme. You know, we all should welcome it. I'm really pleased that the AONB's been part of it as well. So let's just agree this, but bear in mind that we need to really concentrate on looking at how we make this not a strain on the countryside, not a strain on the wildlife that we have on our Northumberland coast. But I welcome it. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, as someone that's walked some of this, I think it's very refreshing to find a path that's easy to use, but is not covered in interpretation panels and signs and the other things that you sometimes find. This is a genuine and natural path, actually, that's great to use, and this extension is great. So we like this one as well, Neil.
Thank you, Chair.
And that takes us to the end of that report. And thank you very much indeed for presenting it this morning, Neil.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we have got some recommendations there. So could I have a proposer and a seconder, please? Proposed by Richard Dodd, is it? And the seconded by Jeff Watson. And we're all in favour. Are we all in favour? Yep, good. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, so that's done. We now move on to urgent business. I don't have any urgent business unless anyone else has. And if we don't, that brings us to the end of this part of the meeting. So could I ask Karen that the recording is stopped? Sorry.